Hi, I just thought I'd talk to you a little bit about some of the things that I've been thinking about and been making over the last, I was going to say a couple of weeks, but I've been thinking about this for a while, which is to make some little objects that I might display, as I mentioned in the last post. And as part of that, the first thing I did was paint some random greeny grey colours on a whole sheet of watercolour paper, and then I cut that up into shapes that I liked. I brainstormed some shapes on a piece of paper and then made templates that are in those shapes, and I also I guess that was partly to audition the shapes, but then I started playing with, I like the idea of stitching on a grid, and so there's lots of these. I've got grids very organically painted onto them, and I like the idea of stitching on the grid, so I made this little piece with just some greens and greys stitched in different ways to see how they looked. And I thought I might wire the edges of them, stitch them to wire and make them into a garden of strange stitched shapes. And then the next thing I did, I guess, was think about painting on fabric and how I could stitch that. And so I got a whole range of different random fabrics of all sorts of, and just experimented, and some of them worked and some of them didn't. Like, not surprisingly, the woolen stuff didn't take to the watercolour paint very well, but the canvas work fabric, which is very stiff but took to the paint really well. And then started thinking about different things I could make with these, either stitching them directly. The other thing I played with, which I hadn't played with, I just did all sorts of different mark making, but one of the things I played with over the last few days was making stencils, and I don't have them all here, but just made some different stencils and then used some different, just by cutting holes in paper, either with a hole punch or just drawing them and then cutting them out with a knife or some scissors. And then I just stenciled those either with paint or with pens of different sorts, and made some interesting textures on the surface of some of these. I might do a post about the stenciling stuff I play with separately, and some of those made some very nice, neat, depending on the fabric, neat shapes, and some of them were very loose and spread quite a lot across the fabric, but I like all of these. Don't know if you can hear that, but the fire alarm's just gone off in the fire station down the road. And then I've been thinking a little bit about combining the paper and the fabric and pushing the fabric through holes in the paper and then like padding them with felt or scrap thread and making these 3D little bark with growths coming out of them kind of shapes. Don't know if you can see that. So playing with that, and also playing with the idea of wrapping fabric around a form and then painting it afterwards. This is a painted piece of fabric, but I actually went back in and painted it a bit more afterwards and just have some scrap thread sticking out. I think that looks kind of interesting. It might make a little piece all of its own. So I can imagine having things like this laid out, somehow laid out as objects. Oh, the other thing I played with was making some little tiles, and I've stamped some holes. I've painted this and then punched holes in the tops of them, so they're basically paper sequins, but I painted them, so I might do a piece of fabric that's just embroidered with these. So that's one little experiment. And then lastly, over the last couple of nights, I've been playing with felt and wrapping felt around wire and stuffing it, and then in different shapes, in different ways, making some of these are stuffed and a little bit of reversed applique, and some of these are just simply blanket stitched. Some of them I did like coral stitch or beaded coral stitch up the sides. Just seeing what sorts of shapes I could make, and I feel like some of these would make quite nice beetle legs, but again, just a couple of these as a little assemblage. Made a seed poddy kind of thing, might be interesting as a collection of objects. So that's the kind of thing I've been working on over the last little while. I admit that I started the paper painting and stitching months ago, but didn't feel up to it over winter, to doing anything, and it's only really over the last couple of weeks I've started making. But I'm thinking for my next video I might actually stitch one of these little creatures and show you what I do, and then maybe together we can think of some things to do with them. Some of this could be augmented, like some of these little green guys might be nice with a wraparound dress in painted lace. So yeah, lots of ideas, and thought it's time I started sharing them with you.